the main field battle. I love that detail.
Oh.
Yeah, when they came together, they really came together. Things were squirting straight up.
I thought that in those days, maybe they allowed you to throw your sword.
No, but they did allow us to go into a dead run on a charge. And amazing things could happen. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Moonwulf Starkaaderson. While this could very well just degenerate into the poke the old orangutan through the bars and try to avoid the flunk poop session, and if that's what you want, that's fine. I will try to, in the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes or so this hour, go over what was actually in the, the course syllabus, and then it's kind of up to you. I started fighting late in 1972. And I last fought actively Wednesday. So I have a long career in the society. I'm about the closest thing to a walking, talking, excreting time capsule you're going to find. So the last half hour, 20 minutes of this is ask the old guy what you want about the old days, about getting old as a fighter, whatever. Let's see here. When I first got into the SCA, the reigning fashion for fighters
Attention, Blair Burns.
was, by and large, make your own.
Blair Burns.
Make it in your kitchen or your backyard,
Leslie O'Donnell.
and it had to pass just a few basic things. Let's see here. Come on, it's just supposed to give me a prompt. Let's get there before I can get to this. Yeah, that's a fine one, that one. That's what I wanted. This is me in my second suit of armor ever. Technical support, the old guy needs technical support. I don't feel like this.
Magic out your slideshow.
Yeah.
Get back to your original.
There should be a pause button in the slideshow.
Yeah.
We have to be there to pause it.
Yeah, just double click the picture.
And I just did this one. Here we go. Come on, there we go. Yeah. Once upon a time, I don't know how well you can see it, that is a Freon tank. That is a helmet I built in the theater shop at Purdue University Theaters, because at the time I was a undergraduate technical advisor for a huge production of Cyrano de Bergerac. I wasn't in the SCA, but I'd been fencing and screwing around with stuff. And it was a Freon tank. It was a Freon tank that was better than most of the Freon tank helmets out there. Because it had galvanized strap iron running along either side and down the nasal, and a couple of bars here and here. My glasses that I had to wear at the time were athletic glasses, but they still stuck out of the eye slots a little bit.
If you have one.
It was padded with closed and open cell foam, and was used almost continuously for 20 years until it was finally outlawed as even a scalpel.
Your lovely, lovely item. Once again,
It is, I am told, still residing somewhere in the archives of Midrealm's Traveling Museum. It is been nicknamed Methuselah. But if you had to, you could probably still take a hit at it. But by and large, these things, they would take the abuse with a certain amount of cosmetic damage. but they were ugly as sin. The man I'm fighting across here is Polydor Haraldson, Sir Polydor Haraldson. One of the first two people in the Middle Kingdom to really start getting into armor. He was the first guy I ever saw in a strength helmet. Okay, he was the first guy I ever saw who was not in a helmet made from a Freon tank. A few other details. That round shield is rimmed with a bicycle tire. That was sort of the industry standard at the time. It kind of set a limit on the shield size, and it was mostly really heavy. But we went through a lot of shields and a lot of swords. For fighters in the crowd, you may take some significance out of the fact that it was not unusual for us to break several swords in a tournament. Sometimes that many shields. The record that I know of in the Middle Kingdom is held by Sir Cyprian of the Wheel, now the late great, sadly, Sir Cyprian, who broke 6 swords in one turn.
So the quality.
2 of them were his. The other 4 he borrowed, and it got really hard to start borrowing by about the 5th or 6th one. No. And I think, however, this is due to the fact not so much that we didn't know how to make swords, so much that our techniques have gotten much more sophisticated. As we have gotten, whether new fighters know it or not, you are now being taught to focus blows much more, so that the energy runs down the sword and into the target, rather than kind of resonating and wrecking up and down the sword. So now it's not that usual to see a broken sword in one of our tournaments. Then it happened all the time. The armor I've got on is my second set of armor. The first set of armor I ever wore in an SCA tournament, I wore at that tournament and then immediately turned into a Pell and swore I would never wear it again. It consisted of a long rectangle of shag carpeting, and in the 70s, that was easy to find. Sewn between 2 layers of muslin, kind of like a sort of like a billboard, wear your own billboard sign, and a poncho. Went over the top, got belted around the middle. Your fighting style was mostly like this. It was hot, it was heavy, it was confining, and it didn't protect me nearly as well as on my opponent. This helmet, pair of hockey gloves, and a failed attempt at leg armor made from polyvinyl chloride sewer pipe. Cut it down, heat it in the oven, spread it out, lined it with shag carpeting, clipped it on my leg. The first warm-up fight I had at that tournament, which by the way was also the first fight I really had in the SCA, shattered that leg armor. And actually put a couple of splinters into my leg, so that was done with very quickly. People put up with a lot of leg bruises in those days. This is the second set of armor. This is polyvinyl chloride too, these plates. They were artfully painted, so they actually looked okay, but they sounded like a bad set of false teeth when I walked. And it's hard to make out. I am now wearing a cuisse, left leg, because that's the one that they're most likely to hit, made out of some heavy canvas drive building. It just sort of strapped on, it wasn't supported here forever. There's a later shot where it's down around my knee. And I wore that, I think, for the better part of about 2 years. It was protective, it didn't look half bad. It was even more or less kind of sort of within keeping with persona. But it was loud, it was noisy, and it required a tremendous amount of upkeep. Let's see. Come on. No. There we go, that's the problem. Polydor, by comparison, is wearing a Spangen helm, however crude it might look. And we'll get some better shots at his armor later. This is what Polydor very quickly evolved to, along with Albert's Black Polydor's there. A set of Wisby plate armor. There's a lot of chainmail, a lot of plate and strap leather. Albert was the man for innovation in this kingdom, both in armor and in fighting. He is now still active. I think he fought in the most recent crown tournament outside of Colorado Springs at the grand old age of, I think, 67. So he is still one crazy old man, and one still pretty damn deadly old man. Had my first fighting lesson ever in the SCA from him. He was at that point just an up-and-coming, pretty good guy. A few months later, he got knighted. A couple years later, he was king. Polydor was a tremendous technician that could reproduce and teach the things that Albert had come up with. So those were two very, very pivotal figures in both fighting and armoring for this kingdom. Polydor later sort of apprenticed people like Valerius Pencalvus, now Count Sir, and Will Wiltshire, who are now legendary figures for a whole generation across North America of SCA armorers. But maybe we should get back to the actual program. But we started out with Freon tanks, hockey gloves, things you made in your basement or your garage, and we got better. I mean, yeah, it's hard to convey how much harder it was just even to get information. This was pre-internet. This was, in a lot of cases, even pre-development. There wasn't a lot of, shall I say, practical reconstruction of stuff like this outside of maybe museums or the Tower of London. A lot of later groups could build or step in whole cloth to a lot of the research that the SCA did. So anytime you start hearing, other reenactment groups sort of inferring that the SCA is the Jerry Lewis of reenactment societies, yeah, we are in some ways, but we did a lot of the groundwork that they got to benefit from. So you can be a little smug about that. Carpet armor was the norm for most starting fighters. We went from that, we went to plate, we went to good chainmail that wasn't made from coat hanger wire.
It sounds like it would hurt.
It was hurt, it was heavy, it came apart at every full stop. It was, the weapons, they had just, maybe 3 years before, stumbled on rattan as a viable material for weapons. Getting a hold of it.
What was used before rattan?
Now we're talking Kingdom of the West before the SCA even really took off. They tried all sorts of stuff. They tried strap aluminum, which was fine until you hit it on the flat of the blade, then you had to stop the fight and scrape it out. They tried plastic rod. They tried all sorts of things. Within about the first year of the SCA, though, somebody decided, hey, this stuff works pretty well. And with California being on the Pacific Rim, that sort of thing was available more than in the Midwest. For a long time, it was like trying to make a drug connection, score some rattan. Oh, there's a better shot of that one. Now you can see, ooh, ah. Now that white stuff sticking out on my left shoulder that's my gambazon, which was made from mattress pad. Movers pads, if you could get them, were great, but mattress pads often wound up being that. No gorget. Elbow protection consisted at that point of knee pads for basketball worn on your elbows, and one cuisse, no knee protection, nothing else. And every time the marshalate introduced a new requirement on armor, there was a lot of griping of, what? That's the biggest piece of sissy stuff I've ever seen. Let's try it this way, this may work better. This is probably from the late 1970s. And what's remarkable is how much progress has been made. We've got one Freon tank helmet there. We have actually a very nice sugar loaf there. That's now Dukes or Merriwald of Sebastian, Primaris. He moved down there after becoming king here. If anyone ever needs any sort of encouragement over the fact that you're a fighter and you haven't won any tournaments, at this point in time, Merriwald had won 2 tournaments that I know of in his life. One of them was the Middle Kingdom Crown Tournament, the other one was the 10th anniversary of the SCA tournament. So if you're going to pick your tournaments, those are pretty good ones. This is Sir Devin Kesher. That is what my next incarnation of armor was. I decided I wanted something that didn't sound like a bad set of false teeth when I walked around. So it's simply a leather jack with leather plates riveted to the inside over a better gambazon, actually very much like the one I've been wearing ever since. Oh look, he's wearing cuisses now. He's even possibly wearing shin protection. Greaves. That's because I saw somebody take a hit below their knee and thought I'd broken his leg. Luckily, it was a very bad bone bruise. I felt bad about it, but I also took away the lesson that perhaps I was not as vulnerable as I might be. And I have a nice Spangenhelm. Ooh. The gentleman that made that, yeah, there we go. There's the helmet, the new helmet with the old armor. My old helmet has somehow migrated and been loaned to a new guy. That's a bridge fight. That's a bridge fight on a 3-foot wide bridge.
Wow.
That is, I think, now Councillor Nathan von der Ritz carrying Polydor's big shield because he didn't have one of his own. That's me kneeling down. Councillor Berengar Hinrowdy, who sadly passed away a few years ago. I have no idea who that is. That might well be Thorbjorn Greysides. Again, this was probably mid-1970s. But you can see the evolution of things. There's a few Freon tanks floating around, but a lot more of the scratch-built stuff. This is a really fine shot of Polydor Harrelson. In armor that he made. This, oh, here we go. We're back to the old dad stuff. Notice that left cuisse that I would only wear? Well, that left cuisse never did stay put very well. Also, notice the petite shield I've got. And lots of Freon tanks. This is about 1973 or thereabouts late. At a demo in North Webster, Indiana. It is important to me, and I remember it not only because I have photos from it, but it was the first time I met Duke Sir Doggin, who was not a Duke or a Sir at the time. Got to know Andrew Seldom Rest better. And God help me, met getting nauseated. Gentleman on the left is Sean McClear. He made that helmet. It was the first helmet he ever made. He made it before he joined the society. He said he thought it would be cool to make a helmet. The second helmet he ever made was one he made and gave to me for my birthday. I wore it for the better part of 12 years, I think, before it was replaced by one that was not necessarily better, but was better looking. He said he made it with, he pounded it out on a stump with a ball-peen hammer and a set of tin snips and a 3/8" electric drill. Those were his tools. And it was a helmet, those helmets would hold up today, they would pass muster. That's the one he made for me. Similar to the one I have now, but not exactly. This would have been after my first reign. I've got my Earl's fighting cornet on, as tacky as that might be. Tactics were just, yeah, it was pretty much, ah! It's from an early demonstration at Purdue. This is one of the Penzig Wars. I have a feeling it is probably about the second Penzig. The man in the foreground, I believe, is Sir Torvald Grimmy, first Baron of Northwoods. Man in the middle, I'm almost certain, is Merowald of Sevaistan. Curiously enough, still in his original Freon tank. And the guy in the distance, although he's got one of Polydor's shields. Polydor's shield's got around a lot, I noticed. But I don't believe that's Polydor. I think that's probably the Tom von der Ritz. This is probably from about Penzig War 2. I don't believe it's 3, but I believe it's 2. Note that it's pretty much hockey gloves, Freon tanks, and not much else. But a lot of blue jeans. This room was from a period of time, if you wanted to be a fop, you dyed some waffle weave underwear for tights and wore them with combat boots. Thanks to Albert, who I'm pretty sure is the gentleman I'm fighting there, I learned a lot and started having to innovate a lot to counter his innovation in fighting. That whole inverted guard thing came out of some of the old fighting books. Because you fought Albert with good technique, or you didn't fight Albert very long.